Welcome back to my garage. Long time no video, super long time no video. The last video I think I put up was something to do with the 4-liter build. There's more to show on that. Actually a video that I shot right after the last one that I posted, but I've been too lazy to edit it. So I need to change my shooting style, make this easier to edit and less daunting. Anyway. Today I have something completely different to show you. A couple of years ago, well, first let me address, there's some people that have commented and want updates on like the Beetle and obviously this thing here. I had a project that kind of took all summer, so hopefully I should be back on the Eagle soon. I started rust repair on the rocker panel. I'm going to do a video on that and all the rust repair stuff, and then there's some and then I want to dive into front suspension, design and engineering, that kind of stuff. Anyways, and as for the Beetle, like I said, it's stored for right now. I do plan to do some stuff with it in the springtime, and I'll try to film that and update people on that because the Beetle's cool. And cool stuff, new stuff. Basically, the thing with the Beetle is there's not that much more to show. I had a great summer of autocrossing it. The car ran great. I didn't have any serious problems. I had, I think, some weird wheel bearing issues, but I've solved that for now. So, yeah, all I did was replace a wheel bearing this season. I'm gonna adjust my seat mount a little bit and make it more comfortable. Anyways, the point being, there wasn't that much exciting to show. Ideally, I'd be able to get a better shooting system for filming autocross with it, because as it is, it's kind of boring. Anyways, so today I have something completely different. Let me pull it into the garage. Maybe this is a hint. How do you like my 3D printed key holder here? I embedded the key in here. By the way, never show people the shank of your key on the internet. It's not really a joke. They can reverse engineer your key, and if they find out where you live or where your car is, they can 3D print a key and start or unlock your door. May I present the shittiest car I own. This is my 93 Loyale. You may have seen it in a video I did, I think probably almost a year ago, rally crossing it on ice. But since then, I have not won another rally cross with it because really on ice, like that particular event, there was some snow on the ground and it kicked ass. But on actual ice, the studless tires just don't compete with the studs. But since then I have tried ice racing it. So wheel-to-wheel racing with this thing versus other cars. Now, up here, the sanction we have allows only studless tires if you don't have a fully prepared car with a cage and fire suppression, fire suit, etc. So my competition, the cars to beat were a Celica GT4, actually a JDM Celica GT4, and a Mitsubishi Eclipse, or Eagle Talon actually, whatever. Anyways, so the thing is with this car is it is so incredibly slow that it actually, it almost it will not spin the tires in second gear on glare ice in 4-wheel drive. So the thing is I wasn't able to even accelerate to keep up with these cars. I was getting passed by a front-wheel drive car just spinning its tires because this thing is so incredibly slow. So I decided to remedy that. May I present to you the world's jankiest EA82 turbo. So what I did is I took a bunch of random junk I had laying around. and turboed this Loyale. Now I haven't tuned it, I haven't driven it yet. This is basically, I'm showing it as after the basic startup kind of shakedown step. I've cleaned up all the oil leaks, there's no vacuum leaks, etc. So what do we have? First off, stock EA82. Fueling is supplied here by a fuel management unit. So what this does is when boost pressure presses down in the fuel management unit's diaphragm, it pinches off the return line, thus increasing the fuel pressure and pushing more fuel through the injector. So without tuning the ECU, because obviously I can't tune the ECU on this old car, I'm able to enrich in the fuel mixture under boost. So I did actually take it on a shakedown drive. I was able to make boost and enrich it no problem all the way up to 9-to-1 AFRs. So I've got plenty of fuel. I know my fueling's safe. Timing, it's got a distributor. So I'm just gonna pull timing out of the whole map by retarding the distributor. Now, let's talk turbo. So, like I said, this is an EA82 single point fuel injection. What I've done here is what you might call a hot air system. So no intercooler, just charge pipe straight in the throttle body. I did it this way because it is TDI, so the fuel will cool the inlet air charge, for one. For two, it's only going to be raced in the winter, so it's probably going to see IATs on the intake of the turbo at 32 degrees or colder. So it probably shouldn't be too hot going into the TDI. So that's the plan there. That's why I don't have a charge cooler. As for the charge piping, this is a boost adapter elbow thing from a JDM EJ20. It was just laying around a shop and got that for free. This is made out of Chevy truck 2 3/4 inch exhaust, 2 3/4 inch silicone coupler from eBay. Surprisingly, the silicone coupler from eBay with these nice T-bolt clamps is actually cheaper than Lowe's elbows. The inlet side of the turbo here is ABS flex couplers, rubber flex couplers from the hardware store. So we've got a 2-inch flex coupler, and then there is a cap adapter. I think it's a 1.5-inch cap adapter, which ends up being about 2 1/4 inch on the actual turbo inlet there. And then I've pie cut an exhaust reducer to create the this little section right here. Right here we've got a vacuum line going from the boost pressure fitting on the turbo to the wastegate. So this thing is running wastegate pressure, minimum boost basically. It'll make the minimum that this turbo will make. Okay, so turbo oil feed is coming from a simple Dash 4 AN turbo feed oil line kit. The pressure is coming off the oil pressure switch on the front of the engine. That's a 1/8 inch British pipe thread, and so that adapter goes to then the oil pressure switch is in the end of that, and then there's another fitting on the side at 1/8 inch NPT, American 1/8 inch NPT. That goes to the actual fitting. It goes to the AN line here. So we've got turbo in, the oil drain comes straight out of the bottom of the turbo, and then I welded a bung into the oil pan. Put a barb fitting in there again from the hardware store, and some 5/8 rubber hose. Hot side. The hot side is made out of the stock header cut and reconfigured so that it wraps around the front of the oil pan like a EJ25 turbo setup does, and then it comes into a 2-inch pipe, which is it's this here. I figured out the cheapest way to get a bunch of bins is to go to the auto parts store and buy a complete tailpipe. So this is a tailpipe for a 90s old body style Chevy Silverado. If you want the part number, it's that right there, 45053. And this is a 2-inch exhaust, has a bunch of bins, just crush bin. I mean, this is the cheapest bargain basement stuff. And so I cut that up and reconfigured it such that it comes back, more kind of approximately where the stock exhaust was. Then it wraps around the CV axle and up into the bottom of the turbo. So unlike an EA82T, where it would come between the cross member and the engine itself, and the turbo would be lower with the intake under the manifold as like an EJ is, this turbo sits higher. And so the reason it does so is, first off, because the single point fuel injection manifold is lower, and there's no way I'm getting a turbo inlet underneath it. The second thing is the downpipe. So this is the funny part about this project. I had a spare downpipe from my Outback XT. It was a stock one. So I took that downpipe, and there happens to be an exhaust hanger off the back of the transmission that's approximately in the same spot on an EJ as it is in a EA82 here. So what I did is I simply bolted it onto that hanger, and it placed the turbo right here, which I was like, shit, that's basically where I need it. I modified the mid support thing to align with a bung in the transmission there, and so it supported both at the back of the transmission and then off the side of the transmission, and then of course on the header itself. So that provides plenty of strength to mount the turbo here in place, and I don't think I need any extra brackets or whatnot. So let's see, what else do we have? We've got a fitting here to adapt to the boost gauge, and then down in the exhaust itself, I have a wideband O2. Okay, so one last thing to show under the engine bay. This is a bit of an experimental thing. I haven't actually tried it yet. We will in this video. But down on the back of the cylinder head here, I've installed a knock sensor. This is like what would come on a newer, or I guess it's not even that new anymore, like Chevy Silverado, LS, whatever. It was the cheapest knock sensor on Amazon. It was like $8. And so what the knock sensor has is it's a transducer. So it converts vibration into electrical energy with piezoelectricity. So it's got 3 connections. It's got ground, which is where the bolt goes through the center of it, and then 2 pins. And those pins are signal and inverted signal. So if you're familiar with audio stuff, this is basically a balanced audio signal. So what I did is I wired that to an XLR microphone jack. So that hangs out on top of the engine right there. There just happens to be an M8 by 1.25 bung on the cylinder head that, didn't have anything in it. So I bolted the knock sensor on there. So the plan is to run that microphone cable into the cabin, and then use a simple USB audio interface as a microphone headphone amp, and just bus power it off a USB charger in the cigarette lighter, and listen on headphones. So what I'll be able to do with that is listen to the engine via the knock sensor and hear any detonation. So I can dial in my timing pretty well enough that I'm not pinging the engine, because I have no illusions. This engine very well could blow up, but it will definitely blow up if I allow it to ping or detonate. So that's the plan there with the knock sensor. As for timing, a little more info on the timing. I've got 2 options here. The first thing I'm going to try is just pulling timing out of the whole map. Right now I have, I think, about 15 degrees pulled out of the whole map. So when you set your base timing on these things, you plug in these green connectors. It locks the timing at the it locks the ECU at negative 20 degrees before top dead center, or 20 degrees before top dead center. To set your timing stock, you would adjust the distributor until you see 20 degrees on the flywheel through the port here in the bell housing. So what I did is I set it instead to 5 degrees. So that's pulled 15 degrees total timing across the whole map. Now, what that does is at low RPM, this engine runs like hot garbage. It barely comes off idle with throttle. It has a really hard time accelerating. I think I've probably pulled more timing out than I actually need to. I'll probably be able to put in quite a bit more. But if this doesn't work out, if it runs incredibly bad, what I might do is leave the green connectors connected. And what that'll do is allow me to run a fixed timing map so that the engine is running at, just one locked out timing degree across the whole rev range. Drag racers do this all the time in the that's an old school drag racing thing. Like they would run their engines at lock timing. And doing that may mean that I get more timing down low where I need it and up high, because I think right now I'm at maybe 15 degrees total timing under full load, and then probably I'm in past top dead center near idle and under low load, which is not good for many reasons. But anyways, so I've got 2 plans with timing. We'll cover that and see how we do. But yeah, let's see what else to show. Oh, here's the fun thing. You might be able to tell this charge pipe sticks up quite a bit. Well, it sticks up enough that I had to cut the hood. So this is my first ever hood cut. I think it turned out pretty well, all things considered. What I did is I laid, with the hood up and the charge pipe on, I laid tape across here and marked where it aligns on the fenders. So I had it taut and then used that tape to build kind of a mesh template around this area. So then I was able to take the charge pipe off, close the hood, and put that tape back where it was and mark it now out on top of the hood. Then I used hole saws to radius the corners. Then it was just kind of trial and error, test fitting, if anything rubs, give it enough space. I did have to make a relief here for this hose. And I suppose one may be wondering what this hose is and what this hose is here. This here is the idle air control. So boost pressure is coming in from this pipe, or I should say air is coming in the charge pipe here. So this will be either at atmospheric pressure, under low load and at idle, or at a positive pressure. Past the throttle body, you have vacuum. So the idle air control on one side sees vacuum. When stock, on one side it sees vacuum, on one side it sees atmospheric pressure. But when I boost it, I need it to see post-throttle pressure on one side and pre-throttle pressure on the other. So I connected it to the charge pipe here. So that way when I blow boost in through the TBI, I don't have pressure coming back out of the idle air control. There's no pressure delta across this hose. And then this right here is just PCV. I just ran it into the intake like a stock car, frankly, because it was easier than capping off that PCV or running it to a catch can or anything like that. I don't think there's much else to show here aside from hooking up that microphone cable and putting some premium fuel in this thing and taking it for a rip, seeing how it's doing, and start dialing in the tune on the street. Okay, I've got my audio interface in here. If you check it out, we've got the XLR. This is wired into the knock sensor. Got my little USB power here. And when I key on, my gate just come on, obviously. But I can see I've got power to the interface. I've got my mix knob. This is a knob that blends between the digital signal from the outputs of this to the analog signal from the mic preamps. So I have it fully to direct, which is the mic preamps. So I think this thing will monitor the mic inputs in direct mode with just bus power. I'm not 100% sure on that though. So we shall see here. I'm going to open up the garage door and we'll give it a test. I'm not seeing any signal. I'm not hearing anything, so I think it may actually need to be plugged into a laptop. I've got my laptop in there now. That's enough to power up the interface, and I'm getting a signal. I can hear the hiss of the mic pre's now and whatnot. So I'm confident that that'll work. Try this again. Oh, cool. Yeah, I can totally hear the engine. It sounds like ticking valves. You can see I'm getting signal here. Let me see if I can plug the audio signal into the microphone jack of the camera and get you a demo of what this thing sounds like. Okay, so there's a demo of what this thing sounds like via the knock sensor. Now let's go get some gas. Sensor's working great. I can hear it clicking away. Maybe we'll get into some real boost now. She is not happy with this timing though. I might bring up another 5 degrees or something unless we start pinging. If we can do a pull down here. That sounded okay. I don't think I heard any pinging. Tip-in is really poor. It'll barely rev the engine. What I'm hearing, what part of what I'm hearing is knock sensor, what part of it is just audio clipping and whatnot. It was cruising along at 45 miles an hour now. Feels about how shitty as it usually does. It looked like it was maybe a bit on the lean side, maybe just a bit like, I want to see nice fat AFRs to keep this thing running. Yeah, the engine really hates this timing. I'm going to add some more, and once we add more timing, I will, we'll see how it runs. If it starts to behave better off boost, then maybe we'll leave it alone. If not, then maybe we'll try the test connectors and lock out the timing. Good news is it's idling. It's not like stalling or anything like that. Oh. Wow, someone just tried to do a crash. Alright. Yeah, it's leaning out up top. Probably needs more fuel pump. We'll see. I'll crank a little more FMU into it and a little more timing, and we'll see if it still ends up around 12 to 1 up top. I almost thought I just heard some rod knock. That might have been drivetrain noise. Yeah, that's a drivetrain noise. Alright, we've got the engine set up to time here. There's our timing light. And you can catch it in the flashes there. You can see it's at about the B mark. I'm going to set it to at the 10-degree mark. Okay, I've adjusted the timing now, and yeah, I probably overshot it a little bit. We're at maybe 12 degrees there, or 11 degrees. This is, of course, with the test mode connectors connected there.
you'll see what happens when I unplug these guys, and you'll see the timing now is kind of jumping all over the place. Oh, maybe not, it's about there. Anyway, so that's basically how you set the timing on this guy. I gave it a quarter turn on the FMU here, so when it enriches, I want to see a richer AFR, because I'm concerned I'm running out of fuel pump up top, because the fuel would enrich and then it got leaner towards the top of the rev range. Of course, you're generating more horsepower at the top, and that means you need to flow more fuel. So therefore, if I'm running out of fuel pump, you'll see it at the high RPM area. So if this keeps a higher AFR up into, or I'm sorry, a lower AFR, you know, a richer environment up at the higher RPMs, then it's just a nature of the fuel map and how the FMU is working. So hopefully we'll see that. If not, I do have a bigger fuel pump, and we'll have to work on putting that in, but now it's time for another test drive. Seems like it's maybe responding a bit better. It almost sounds spicier in the headphones. It should be running better, a lot better. All right, let's do a pull here. I think this thing is definitely faster though. It definitely seems faster than it was. You know, we're just on the old eyeball logger, watching the boost gauge and the wideband here. Hopefully you can hear me in the GoPro. I don't even know. This thing's super loud inside. Especially back there, there's a giant rust hole in the floor. Alright, let's do another pull. Seeing about 4 pounds of boost right now. The knock sensor sounds good. It just sounds like it doesn't sound like it's pingy. It just gets louder with RPM, which is what I would expect. But I think we are short on fuel pump. So, like I said, I added more fuel management unit to it, so it should be clamping down that return line, pushing that fuel pressure up, and you know, it's interesting that drivetrain noise, I can hear it in the headphones. Anyway, it should be bringing that fuel pressure up more because I added more fuel to it with the fuel management unit, but it's still getting a little bit lean up top. So that indicates to me that I'm just running out of the pressure and the flow that the pump can deliver. Someone tries to cut me off again. All right. Whoa. Let's go back into second there now. So it looks like we're sitting about 4 pounds of boost. Like I said, it's getting lean. I don't think we're getting detonation yet, but I do want to address that. So I think the next step is going to be to install that upgraded fuel pump and figure out how to go ahead and do that. And timing seems better. It probably could take more timing still. I don't know what it is, you know, what the timing is up top. It does sound like my interface is clipping. So maybe after this light here, I'll do another pull and we'll turn the gain way down so I can hear better. Yeah, I'm seeing as much as like 12.5 to 1 on you know, up top. So it's definitely leaning out, definitely out of fuel pump. Which, you know, hey, this thing has, let's see, 209,000 miles, almost 210,000 miles. This is the totally original stock engine, totally original fuel pump, as far as I can tell. the good thing about these cars is it uses an inline pump, so it's super easy to change. I just need to adapt some fittings and lines and whatnot.
So that was a successful little run of tests there. The NOx sensor worked great. I was able to hear what the engine sounded like. Hopefully you were able to hear on camera. There's a little artifacting in there, especially when I get into higher RPM, higher loads, and it gets louder. The audio interfacing was clipping a little bit. The signal was too loud for the input gain I had set. So that's not ideal. I turned it down later and actually got that sorted out. But I wasn't hearing pinging. You know, this is, granted, let me just make this absolutely clear, and maybe I'll put this disclaimer up at the front of this video. I am not a professional tuner. I understand how this stuff works. You know, I understand more timing, leaner mixtures will tend to introduce detonation, but I haven't listened to a NOx sensor before. I'm just going off of what I would imagine it sounds like. So anyway, it seems to be working well. The fuel management unit is working, it's enriching it, but it's leaning out up top. And to me, that indicates we're running out of fuel pump. When an engine revs higher, and this is very generally speaking, but in a general sense, when an engine revs higher, when it makes more horsepower, when you're in the high horsepower amount of the curve, you need to flow more fuel to go with that airflow. That's why I think that the fuel pump is inadequate, because it's leaning out up top when the engine's making more horsepower, not down low where the engine's making less horsepower, but still demanding the fuel management unit work and bring the pressure up. So I did go out and when I kind of did my initial parts buy for this project, I bought a $20 fuel pump off Amazon. This is like, oh shit, unboxing time. Ta-da! So I've got this guy here. It's got ring terminals, positive and negative. It looks like these are intended to be push lock fittings. I don't know. Anyways, it's an inline fuel pump. So the plan is to replace the Loyale pump with that. It should flow enough fuel to and enough pressure for the horsepower level that we're after. You know, honestly, if this thing makes 150 horsepower, it's like, you know, awesome. This thing it's more than double what it probably made stock, if it does. See, what else is there to say? Yeah, so like I said, fuel pump, I'll probably update you maybe when I get that in and when I get the tune dialed in, because right now it is pretty boring just doing pull after pull. But that NOx sensor stuff is pretty interesting. And you know, it's kind of, this is the old school way of doing it back in the day when people were tuning Hondas and turboing them and stuff back in the 90s and stuff. This is one of the ways they did it. Or like the like Vortex superchargers and stuff they put on like Chevy pickups and probably Camaros and whatnot too. They would use fuel management units to fuel them down, and probably similar process with the distributor. Anyway, that's about it. Hopefully get this thing dialed in, get it tuned a little better, and the next event that's coming up is in December. Hopefully we'll get a little snow. That would be awesome. But yeah, we've been doing gravel rally crosses. I haven't driven this car yet, but I have driven my daily driver Outback, and it's a blast. I think I'd benefit from shorter wheelbase, softer springs, and a lighter car. And this car has all those things. So we'll see how that goes. Anyways, thanks for watching, and see you later.